A difficult, perplexing job faces today's city planners.
In a way, it's surprising that we have cities at all, given that when you crowd people together, you generate costs like expensive land and congestion. But we get cities nonetheless because there are these spillover benefits that when you put firms together or when you put workers together, they can actually make each other more productive. And that can be by developing these supply chains within a city. It can be by creating more employment opportunities or communicating ideas that sort of fuel innovation. And in a place like Silicon Valley, that's what we see as the gravity that holds the city together. And when those things come together and those benefits offset the costs of congestion, then you really have a recipe for fast urban growth. Just because a city has been successful in the past doesn't mean that it always will be. And we've seen a lot of cities, especially across sort of industrial areas of the rich world, that have fallen into decline. And I think to understand that, we have to look at changes in kind of the forces that created them in the first place. And in particular, if you look at the cost of moving goods around.
Reasons which determined the original location of cities, once so significant, no longer apply today.
When the cost of moving goods is high, it makes a lot of sense for factories to crowd together. But over the 20th century, the cost of shipping fell dramatically, fell by about 90%. And so that eroded the logic that held these cities together in the first place. It suddenly became very attractive for factories to move someplace else, whether the South or China, to take advantage of cheap land and cheap labor, and then just use this cheap shipping to move goods to customers 1,000, 10,000 miles away.
Frequently called the most cosmopolitan city of the Midwest, Detroit today stands at the threshold of a bright new future.
So if you look at a city like Detroit that had for decades thrived based on this concentrated supply chain, the fall in shipping costs that allowed companies to move out of Detroit to elsewhere in the region or elsewhere in the country, it really sort of struck right at the heart of the metropolitan economy there, and that's the roots of Detroit's decline.
Detroiters rate their city high for living, working, and sheer enjoyment.
So economics gives us a few ideas of things that can help a city that finds itself in a slump spark a turnaround or delay decline and generally try to fix the situation. One thing that seems to help is an educated population, a worker base that has a high level of skills. That seems to help the economy pivot toward idea industries, things that tend to be more successful in holding cities together in kind of the 21st century economy. Another thing that's important is a more diverse economic base, so that you have lots of different kinds of businesses across lots of different industries, some of which might still find it advantageous to locate close to each other. So if you have a city like Detroit that was so dominated by this one industry, the car industry, and that industry falls into decline, you don't have a sort of a subset or a bunch of small industries there waiting to sort of spring up and seize the openings, I guess, that the decline of the car industry create. If you look by contrast at a city like New York, a lot of its old industrial base and textile plants and things like that really suffered from the 1950s to the 1980s, but it had a lot of other potential industries waiting in the wings that were able to really prosper as technology reduced shipping and communication costs, things like fashion, finance, and a lot of idea-based industries that really benefited and helped power the city's economy after the industrial base started to seep away. I think even a city that really falls on hard times can sort of take some solace in the fact that cities are very persistent, that they don't really go away. I mean, you can think about a place like Venice. Venice was based on this thriving Mediterranean trade industry that really powered its economic growth. But at the time that the European powers were shifting away to more Atlantic shipping, that kind of led to Venice's decline. But Venice is still there. It went through several centuries of decline. But now it's prospering on the back of tourism and things like that.
Every tourist, of course, investigates the romance of a ride in a gondola.
Once you have this collection of people and institutions and culture, it's able to survive quite a lot in the way of economic hardship, even across centuries. And so there's no reason to think that in the future these cities will go away, unless we invent teleportation.